Hi,
Hi there.
how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great.
So this is Kate, and I'm here with Leela Bryan, and we're going to do a cell talk, a soul talk on recognizing and dealing with being an empath, or how to handle that.
Mhm.
Um, if this is your first time listening, I'm Kate Olson, and I'm a hypnotherapist and a life coach and an NLP practitioner. And if you got to this Soul Talk, you probably already know that I had a radio show called Embrace Change with Kate, and I'm about to start a new one, which will be um, Soul Fire Wisdom. And so I hope you'll tune in for that. So I want to have Leela uh, tell us a little bit about herself before we get started.
Okay. And my name is Leela Bryan. I'm 71, and for years and years, I have taught people how to quit smoking after I quit in 1978. And I've taught people all over the world. And should I tell them how you and I met?
Yeah, I was going to, but you can go ahead.
Okay. We haven't really talked about that, but we both, originally from Seattle, Washington, and we used to, I was a blackjack dealer for about a year and a half in Reno, Nevada. And I never thought I could use that skill again. And then I came across a lady that would do fantasy casino. So you and I met at fantasy casino when we were dealing cards at parties. So it was like a fun little thing that we could do kind of on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were introducing about how I became an empath, and I really never knew that I was an empath until probably 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I always knew there was this, I just couldn't name it about what was going on. And the way it started was probably, I don't know, when I was like 20. It was probably younger, but I didn't even notice it. And every time I was around people that were angry or angry at me, I could feel it in my stomach or in my throat. And I would just look around and go, "Are you angry? Are you angry at me?" And I just got really afraid of people's anger.
Mm-hmm.
And because I could feel it. And then I would start to feel it um, in a different city. If somebody was in a different city and they were mad at me, I could feel it. And then I started, when I was teaching my classes, after I had taught for about 15 years or so, and everybody would smoke while they would learn how to quit. And so they would smoke for the first 6 weeks. And then when they would quit smoking, they would get really kind of muddle-headed. And they couldn't really, and the reason is they get more oxygen to their brain, and they can't really, they're not adjusting. Eventually they do adjust, and they have more brain power after they quit. But when they're in that stage, and it takes a couple months for the oxygen complement to really kick in, and for your brain power to be able to use that much oxygen in your brain. And so everybody gets like really, not everybody, but a lot of people get really muddle-headed, and they start losing their keys and locking themselves out of their car and putting on their blouses inside out, and just doing really they go in the kitchen and they forgot what they wanted, and they turn around and go back, and they remember what they did when they're clear on the other end of the house. And so I just call it muddle-headedness. And what I started to notice is, even if I had a lot of students that were, some in London and some in Australia, and when I get to meeting, right around meeting 5 or 6, I would notice that I unconsciously, I wasn't even noticing it was week 6, and I'd start locking myself out of my car and losing my keys. and I go, and at the time I was married, my husband said, "Is this week 6?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, that's what's going on." Because I was picking it up from the whole world of my students. You know, it didn't matter where they were, but I was feeling them. And then I started to say, when I would feel muddle-headed, or I would get acid indigestion, I would start to feel all these things with the people. And then, and one time I was walking some dogs from my neighbor who had pancreatic cancer, and he was all doped up on really heavy drugs. So not only was I teaching 3 meeting 6s, but I was walking his dogs, and I felt him. You know, I felt like he was feeling, and I was taking it all in, and I was going, what in the heck is going on? I went to bed that night, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move.
Goodness.
And I spent 2 hours trying to just budge myself just a little bit. And I went to the doctor, and he just gave me some muscle relaxants. But after that, I realized what was going on. But it took me a while to kind of figure it out, that, oh my gosh, I'm taking in all of these things, and I'm not doing it consciously. You know.
Yeah, you should have mentioned this sooner, because I'm also an empath, and I've known it for a long time. I've known it since I didn't know what to call it, but I knew it way back, you know, like in college. And I didn't, like, everybody who had a problem would come and talk to me, and I would always, like, just really feel their whatever they were going through. And I thought it was just empathy for a long time, but finally I realized it was more than that. And I did what you did. I would take in all this, you know, whatever was happening. And my ex-husband, even, I was going to be a counselor. I started going to grad school for counseling, and my ex-husband said he didn't think I should do that because I worried about other people's problems more than they did. And he was seeing that I was taking in all of this pain, anxiety, whatever was going on with other people, and just thinking it wasn't a good idea. And I thought about it, and I kind of agreed with him, because I didn't know how not to do that.
Right.
And you can be an empath and still feel other people's energy without taking it in yourself. But it takes consciousness. As you said, you were doing it unconsciously. Right. It takes consciousness. And even though I had learned to do that as an empath, when I started doing Reiki, at first, like, if somebody was in pain, I would actually feel their pain.
Yes.
Because I didn't, you know, that was new to me, you know, like, I didn't know how to do the Reiki and have the healing go through me instead of the other way around, like taking their energy.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's something you have to learn. Now I don't have any problem with that, which I always thought that I would. Like I always worried that if I, invited people telling me all their issues and some very traumatic things that, I would be dealing with all of that. And
Right.
what.
And I think awareness is really, they say awareness is the first step to change. And so I kept hearing the word empath, and it wasn't clicking in. And so then, as Facebook groups have become more popular, I started looking. There's one group called Born an Empath. There's a lot of people in there, and I felt like I was home. I went in there, and they asked all these questions to get in to the group, and I went, oh my God, I just about have all of them. And, why didn't I realize this
Well,
before?
one thing that, if you would have said anything to me, I would have immediately thought that because of how you relate to animals.
Right.
Almost everybody who is an empath, relates to animals very,
Right. I feel them.
Yeah.
And now it's starting to be that I know when, dogs need to go for a walk, or, or I feel they're, today I'm pet sitting for a Great Pyrenees, and she's in a lot of, it's really hot here. So it's, I can just feel her.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of morphed in, now that I know about it and I can label it and not feel, I know that when I'm teaching, week 6 comes up and they get muddle-headed, I kind of prepare myself, even though sometimes I forget. And now it's starting to morph into, now that I know about it and I can label it, now I know. I've had this for a long time too, where I know when plants need water, they almost cry to me. And now I live on a floating home, and so sometimes when people are, throwing gray water into the ocean, I can almost feel that too. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is
well, everything is energy, and that's the reason why I think empaths all connect with animals. Is I think it's the animals sensing, oh, here's a person I can communicate with.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas the other people are just, they don't tune into me at all.
Right. It's funny because sometimes when I teach people to quit smoking, and then I am also a live-in pet sitter, and a lot of times I'll go and go and sit down when I first met the pet, and I just sit down on the floor with them, and the owners will say, I've never seen them come up to somebody like that before, and I go, oh well, that's just what happens.
Yeah, that's the way it's always been with me too.
Yeah.
One of the things when I was a kid, animals would come to me just if they were hurt or in pain or anything. They would just come to me, and it was like I was supposed to do something.
Right.
I didn't understand it. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But I would just like put my hand on them, and it like seemed to calm them.
Mm-hmm.
And now I understand more of what that was, but it was really kind of confusing to me, like
right.
It would be like my sister, she loves dogs, and she was kind of rambunctious as a kid, so they wouldn't they would go away from her. And now she shows dogs in dog shows and breeds them. And she had a dog that was having a nerve issue. And she, she wanted to help that animal so much.
Mm-hmm.
And the animal wouldn't come to her.
Mm-hmm.
It would come to me, and if I put my hand on it, it would stop shaking.
Right.
And that was like totally frustrating to her because she didn't understand it. It was the same feeling as when she was a little kid, although she, intellectually didn't feel that way, but it was the same. Well, why do they like you and not me?
Right. And it's just all about energy.
Yeah, it wasn't that. Her dog still loved her. It was just feeling this need, for whatever kind of energy.
Right. And I just think here, just in just talking about in my path to learning about it, I think just awareness is so key to being comfortable with protecting yourself about, putting up some boundaries or some shields, or because it can, like I said, it paralyzed me. And so
Yeah.
it can really
and
be
there are people that it isn't necessarily that they're bad, but their energy is not good for you.
right.
And, if you're not aware of it, you'll just not feel good.
Right.
They can come and make your whole day horrible, and you don't know why.
Right.
But if you're aware of it, and they don't even have to do anything. They can be maybe unaware of the energy they're putting out. But then you can know that I need to just not be in the presence of this person.
Right. And then if you're married to them, you might as well.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah.
Then you have to figure out a way out because it's probably not going to change. Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
I like being allergic.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, what have you learned any techniques for dealing with it since you've been in your empath group?
Maybe not techniques so much as I think knowing that other people can do the same things, or that it can be positive and it can be negative, and it can be like there's also a part of me that sometimes, like right now, I'm living on a floating home, and I'm in between homes. I'm not going to call myself homeless, but I just think that for some reason, I know it's all going to work out, and yet I can't really see the path to do that. So I guess sometimes you just have to trust. It's like trusting your intuition, I guess, but it's just an inner knowing, and sometimes it's not worth worrying about. I just go, well, I think it's going to work.
Sometimes, usually that feeling that is right. I think maybe you might remember when I went through a period of sort of homelessness, things not working out, and I was actually sleeping on Louise's couch for a while, or off and on. And I remember driving in the car with her, and she's bringing up that she was worried about me, like for the future. And I said, well, I don't know. I just see that I'm going to be okay.
Right.
She kind of looked at me, she was very skeptical. And,
And sometimes you just know.
And I couldn't see the way. I mean, there is no way on earth at that particular time that I would have ever seen that I would live in a home that was my own.
Mm-hmm.
I could possibly see, maybe renting an apartment again.
Yeah.
But I would have never foreseen that I would be, where I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that it would be okay.
Right. Yeah. Like there's some times that I've planned to meet somebody and I had an appointment and I knew that I didn't get ready for it. And I just knew that I couldn't imagine why I wouldn't meet with them, but all of a sudden that they would call or say, oh, change their plans, or, and I just knew. And yet I was ready for the meeting if it took place, but it just, certain things you just kind of know. And I guess that's part of being an empath, or I don't know if
well,
intuition and empath.
What I find is that I am trusting it more, but what I would do in the past a lot, and it's separate. There's some intuition to it too.
Yeah.
But like, although I said that to Louise,
mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that I totally believed it
right
at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when I would get a feeling about something, I would spend a lot of time trying to talk myself out of it.
Right.
Because, I wasn't trusting it.
Yeah.
And I think you have to learn that also.
Yeah.
Is to trust the feelings.
Right. And so I guess that's what I've learned from the group. And I've learned that there's different kinds of empaths. There's the auditory and there's the feeling, and there's all different kinds, and not everybody has all of the different ones.
And there might be something weird about you.
Yeah.
You get that another person might not.
Right.
And it's just weird.
Yeah. I think I was telling you one time about that I could hear, and my friend also is an empath, and my neighbor, and she and I both heard the same thing, and I think people around here on our floating homes think we're really weird, because I know I've heard in the background. I can't really say where it's coming from, and when I concentrate on it, it goes away. But it's like this old time radio station in the 1920s, and it's like scratchy music, and I can't really make out what they're playing, but it's like a radio station, and it's like a frequency or something. And she's heard the same thing, and we don't know if maybe it was from the Roaring '20s around the San Francisco coast, or we don't know, but it's it's just, and they said in the empath group that's they have a name for that one too. And so they said, oh yeah, that's part of being an empath. I said, okay, well, I'm tuning into old radio stations.
Well, it could be where you are is the site of where some old speakeasy was or something.
Yep, speakeasy. Yeah, I could be right on top of it, floating around on it. Who knows?
Yeah. So did you feel like it was a good thing to discover that you were?
Oh yes, it took such a weight off me to go. I'd heard the word before, but I never really. I thought it had to have some special qualities or something. And but then when I started to when I joined the group and looked at all the entry questions, it answered so many questions about me and my life, and the things that I know and the things that I don't know and the things that I feel, that it like I keep saying, that awareness really is an important thing. And then I'm a lifelong learner, so I love learning about, well, what about this and what about that? And maybe I'm, learning all these abilities that I maybe have that I haven't really thought about before, and say, oh, okay, this is, rather than it being a bad thing to feel everybody's anger, because it's morphed into other things now too. It's not just anger that I feel. So
Yeah, because they're under that anger, there's usually fear or hurt.
right.
So
There is one thing though that and I didn't realize it at the time. And I wrote an online article that was very, very popular about the side effects of quitting smoking. And so then it was very popular. And so I decided I'd write a book on it. And so as I'm writing the book, though, it took me about a year to write the book. And it was about all the side effects of quitting smoking. And so in each chapter, I would feel all these side effects that I was writing about. Like one chapter was on diarrhea, and oh, I was glad to get over that chapter. And then, heartburn, and oh my gosh. And I said, I am so done with this book, because I was feeling every single, and all these people would write in about, this is how I feel. And these were mainly people that quit cold turkey, that they weren't really preparing their body to smoke for 6 weeks like in my program. But anyway, I was really glad to be
you
done with.
needed some awareness there.
Oh yeah.
Because you were actually, as you were writing, you were imagining
I was,
feeling,
yeah.
and it very similar to like if you were hypnotized, you might even have been self-hypnotizing yourself.
Yeah, I had to take my own medicines.
Yeah, and
So it's
you can very easily not do that.
right, and that's an important thing, I think, to
Yes.
be able to protect yourself from those kinds of things.
Yeah, but it is like people that have gone through trauma, like say domestic abuse victims or sexual abuse victims, when they go to like traditional counseling and they have to, tell their story over and over again,
Yeah.
it does have that effect of re-traumatizing them like
Yeah.
that. It's like, going through it over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's why some other methods can work better for actually getting past rather than
Rehashing the whole thing. Yeah. Reliving it. Yeah.
experiencing it.
Yeah.
Because some things are, once is just enough.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I learned.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's any empaths out there or people that are having these kinds of feelings and you don't know why, maybe you learned something. I hope you learned something from this, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.